No one knows if Paul Manafort will serve life behind bars, but we do know he's behind bars all this weekend because the judge in that high-profile case just dismissed the jury just within the last hour or so. Now, they've deliberated 7.5 hours today, which is continuing their evaluation of Mueller's charges on bank and tax crimes that, if convicted, would ultimately give Manafort an effective life sentence, according to many experts. Now, while the jury was deliberating, President Trump spoke about the trial today.
I think the whole Manafort trial is very sad. When you look at what's going on there, I think it's a very sad day for our country. He worked for me for a very short period of time, but you know what? He happens to be a very good person. And I think it's very sad what they've done to Paul Manafort.
Just to be clear, most presidents don't hold those kind of extemporaneous remarks about an open trial while jurors are deliberating. And if you're wondering how everyone felt about it, well, the Manafort team thought it was a good thing.
Does the long deliberation work in your favor?
I think it does.
Downey, what was your reaction to the president today?
We're very happy to hear from the president and that he's supporting Mr. Manafort.
How are you feeling going into the weekend?
Very good. We're very, very happy about the fair trial that Judge Ellis ensured for Mr. Manafort. And that's about it. Thanks, guys.
Now, we don't know what's going to happen, but I got two people who've been through a lot of these types of federal trials, former federal prosecutors John Flannery and Seth Waxman. I want to get into the deliberation room because it's fascinating and you know more than I do and most of us do. But let's start just with, is it normal for a U.S. president to speak like this while a jury is deliberating about the defendant?
No, it is not usual at all. But this president is not usual and doesn't care about the law or constitutional rights and doesn't care if he affects the outcome, which he plainly hopes to do. And it's interesting.
Then why isn't it jury tampering?
Well, it is jury tampering. Everything he does practically is obstruction, whether it's issuing statements that you will no longer have security clearances or he gives this speech.
If Judge Ellis were here, he would give you a hard time and say, when you say everything Trump does is obstruction, you're not being fair, accurate, or precise.
I would have an argument with Judge Ellis then, because I don't believe Judge Ellis appreciates the threat to our judicial system, particularly by this president. And he apparently had some concern about at least two things, which was public coverage of the case when he didn't have a sequestered jury, and perhaps even how he will find out how he's handled the threats to himself and to the jury.
Well, you're putting your finger on it. Let's get right to it, Seth. People around the country, no matter what your political views, are wondering, wow, is the current president's campaign chair about to be convicted of serious crimes, which means he was running this organization but was a criminal? And what does that say about America? What does that say about this presidency? Or is he going to get off or get a mistrial, and they're all home for the weekend? And the media is obviously going full bore. That's what we do. What do you think about John's point, and what do you think those jurors are going to do this weekend? And walk us through what they're supposed to not do.
Well, they're not supposed to talk about the case, talk with their wives, go on the internet, or husbands. They're supposed to leave this thing be, enjoy their weekend, in theory, and come back Monday and get back to their workmanlike jury deliberations. But, you know, betting on a jury on where they are is like going to Vegas and betting bad roulette. You just have no idea. It could be that they're 12-1 in favor of conviction or acquittal. Maybe they've decided on some charges and not others. You know, the fear is that maybe one of these jurors has kind of gone rogue maybe and wants to kind of become their 15 minutes in the sun afterwards and say, I got to be the lone holdout. You hope something like that hasn't happened.
What does the question about reasonable doubt say to you after 2 days? On the one hand, complex charges. On the other hand, the Mueller folks were arguing that this should have been easy to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the prosecutor, your heart drops a little bit when you see that request for an explanation on reasonable doubt. But, you know, again, this could be one juror just needs to understand better, and the other 11 are on the other side saying, look, it's very clear to us. Let's get the judge to tell you. And, of course, the judge said, like most judges, a reasonable doubt is a doubt for which you can have a reason, which really tells you very little.
Very helpful. I find that very, very helpful.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
I'm going to press you one more time and then go back to John. You are someone who's argued in your analysis that the case against Manafort evidentiarily is strong.
Correct.
When you see them go through the weekend here without this verdict, and it creeps into Monday, are you worried that there is a holdout, that this could be a mistrial?
No, not at this stage. I mean, 2 days of deliberations in a 2-week-long trial is not unusual. The fact that the jury note came on the first day, and yet today they had a full day of deliberations with no notes. We haven't seen anything where they say they're, hung, that they're having problems with no one, a particular juror not participating. So the fact that they've taken a whole day of jury deliberations kind of in a workmanlike fashion and said, look, we just want to get out a half an hour early and we're ready to come back on Monday, wouldn't cause my, too much consternation if I was a prosecutor. If you get to 4 or 5 days, and you start to see, we're hopelessly deadlocked kind of instruction or notes, then you start to really panic.
John, take a listen to Donald Trump's evolution. We showed him today saying, oh, good guy. But previously, he tried to limit the whole idea that Manafort was crucial to the campaign. Of course, he was the #1 guy on the campaign for a while. Take a look.
Now, Paul Manafort's a nice guy, but, he worked for me for a very short period of time, literally for, a couple of months? Little period of time.
Manafort has nothing to do with our campaign. Paul Manafort worked for me for a very short period of time. He worked for Ronald Reagan. He worked for Bob Dole. He worked for John McCain, or his firm did. He worked for many other Republicans. He worked for me, for 49 days or something? A very short period of time.
What I like is the casual reference to 49 days, as if it wasn't a memorized talking point. 49 days?
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Half days.
What's he doing there, and does it matter for the trial?
It does matter for the trial. Basically, what he's trying to diminish the role of his campaign manager, who's likely going to be convicted of washing money, avoiding taxes,
well, we don't
things
know.
like that. We don't know that.
You don't know?
But, no, I don't know it, but I'll bet it's going to happen.
Wait till I get this power panel with Judge Ellis. He's going to
I'm waiting for that.
You know the expression ham, he's going to go ham on you.
He's going to go ham on me? Well, let's analyze what he did in that short period of time. He was his campaign manager to run a convention, as he had for others, a successful convention. And at that convention, he helped change one of the planks of the platform to make it the Republicans wanted
to help Russian interests in Ukraine.
Yes.
Why wasn't that charged if you think that's bad?
Well, I think it is bad, and I'm not in charge of that investigation.
You think they didn't have the evidence? Or you think it could come later?
Well, the investigation's not over. I think that we've had 3 indictments that have set up different parts of this case, and I think we're going to have a 4th one that moves into what everybody's calling collusion, which is the conspiracy of what they did. And I think that we have evidence that people have been coming forward and giving information to the prosecution, and we don't know what's going to happen with Cohen, and we don't know what's going to happen with other people who were involved and close. We have no idea what Flynn said. We have no idea what the tapes might be by Papadopoulos. There's a lot of information out there, and so far there is nothing that has been presented by Mueller that wasn't solid. Pleas, indictments, and the conduct of this trial was outstanding. I'm not saying that the defense wasn't doing a lot of really good legal work, but the team that he put together is amazing in the courtroom. And they had a very difficult time with the same judge you would have judge me, who interfered during the case, scolded the prosecutor in the courtroom, and then basically misrepresented the law when he said, well, if that loan wasn't granted, why don't you go on to a loan?
Why don't you spend your time on something more important?
And that's not the law.
Which was unusual,
yeah. It's very unusual.
Well, look, they say you should always treat people how you want to be treated, and you guys have acted like lawyers to a lot of people. So today I tried to lawyer to you, and I hope that's okay.
Yeah, it is.
Fine with
us. We enjoy it. It's like a fruit cocktail.
John Flannery, Seth Waxman with the analysis. We'll be watching and we'll be calling on you next week, a case that everyone is watching on the Manafort trial.